are you guys? How's your meeting?
Fantastic.
Nice.
Because you are a very certain person.
Tina?
Definitely be
Ready? All right. I call this regular session to order. All right, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will be sharing land acknowledgement this evening. The Port Gamble Tribe land acknowledgement will be read by Vice President Denise Tracy.
We wish to recognize we are gathered on the homeland of the Port Gamble S'Klallam and other tribes. We acknowledge the S'Klallam people have an extensive history and territory in the Pacific Northwest. We want to respect their history and territory, even though we cannot adequately share their story. However, we have the opportunity to pay respect to the tribes of this land by encouraging our neighbors to learn about the Port Gamble S'Klallam people and other tribes by visiting, learning their histories, or getting involved and supporting the tribes.
All right, thank you. We now have the adoption of the agenda for this meeting. Do we have any corrections or amendments to the agenda? All right, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Move approval of the agenda as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second?
That's good. Take it.
Second.
Take it, all right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Give me a thumbs up. I'll take it. All right, there you go. All right. The agenda will stand as approved, as presented. All right. We now have the consent. We have to move on the consent agenda. Do we have any corrections or changes to the consent agenda? We have a motion to move and approve the consent agenda.
Move approval of consent agenda items as presented.
We have a second?
I second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All right, the consent agenda will stand as approved as presented. All right, updates and recognitions. Next, we have the student representative of the board report, Ms. Villanova.
Villanueva.
Got it. All right, I gotta get the end.
Next.
I'll get the end.
The effort was there. Okay, so this past week was homecoming for Ole and CK. Our football game poured. It was very wet. We wore like really long dresses and high heels in the rain, but it was fun, I think, overall. I think the entire weekend, homecoming-wise and activity-wise, went pretty well. Spirit Week for that went well. For Klahowya, I heard from one of my friends that they're getting a new building for concessions and restrooms for their stadium, which is really good news. That's always nice to have. Right now, CK Swim is ranked and undefeated. They're headed to districts and states. Olympic football is ranked number 9 in their league. Girls cross country is ranked pretty high. I think they're having a really great season as well. And then KSS girls soccer is ranked number 3. Academic-wise, all of our seniors are working really hard for that November 1st deadline for early action and early decisions. So as a senior, we're all kind of stressing to get all of our materials together. Student safety, obviously, if you've read the news, if you know anything going on at CK right now, it's definitely a priority for us, and it's definitely something that has been talked about, especially amongst students. There was lots of anger and frustration coming from both students and parents regarding how the situation last week was communicated and how it's handled. This morning, a walkout was held at CKHS to protest the way the situation was handled by both law enforcement and building administration. Gun violence was a prevalent theme, and school safety was also highly spoken about. As a student, I'm personally proud to be a part of a school that voices their opinions and concerns so clearly and confidently. I'm not going to speak for the whole student body of the district when I say this, but I stand by my peers who have spoken out against the way the situation was handled. As a district, I think we need to move forward, remembering to always put the safety of our students first. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Cassie. All right, next up is SKESP report. Ms. Carr.
Hello, is this on?
No.
Hold on 1 minute, he got you.
How about now?
Ah.
There we go. All
Much
right.
better.
Thank you for inviting me here today to give you a brief update on the classified staff of Central Kitsap School District. This week, during teacher conferences, our classified staff have an opportunity to attend our October Summit training days. A huge thank you to Kim Sanfilippo, who is our classified professional development specialist, for putting together a great selection of training for all of our classified staff. Kim took all the feedback from prior year's training days and worked hard to put together options that will support all of our classified needs. There are over 31 different courses to take, and several are taught by our own classified employees who are exceptional in their roles and have lots of experience to share with others. CKESP is presenting the guest speaker, Corey Campbell, a motivational speaker, for 2 presentations, one from 8 to 10 a.m. and one from 2 to 4 p.m. at the Central Kitsap High School auditorium. I heard that you were all given an invitation to attend, and I hope you get the chance. I hear it's going to be an amazing event. At the 8 o'clock one, there's already about 500 people signed up to go. One concern that's been coming through with classified staff, and it's been shared with me, is from our office staff across the district, with the need for discussion around the fact that we do not have nurses full-time in our buildings. The office staff take on a heavy load of medical support for our students, and it's heavier in some buildings than others. There are many concerns from them around this topic, some being minimal training, time commitment to focus on health needs over the regular office job, and their worries of injuring a child because they are overwhelmed. I have brought this up to HR, and we are currently working on setting up some meetings to see what needs can be supported immediately and what needs to be shifted or changed to help support our staff. I'm pleased to have seen some communications around this concern going out to office staff within days of the discussion. Staff just want the chance to feel heard and feel supported as they support our students. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And then definitely the nurses thing is definitely a concern too with WASDA. Now we have CKEA, Ms. Nicholson. Oh yeah. I'm used to this. Like sisters.
Good evening. It's parent-family conference time for our schools, and just staff and schools have the ability to adjust their work schedules over the next 2 days in order to hold parent-family conferences early in the morning or in the evenings, as well as during the day, in order to better meet the needs of and work schedules of our families. There are many schools that are already starting conferences tonight. Many schools are having conferences tomorrow night in order to help meet those needs. I just want to say thanks to our staff and our families for their participation in support of the parent-teacher conferences. We also have staff who are not directly participating in conferences, but are supporting those folks that are doing conferences. So it's just a great time for the communication between staff and families as everyone learns more about students and their strengths and needs. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay. Business operation. Next is safety and security update. Mr. Black.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and get started, and Mr. Block and I will be tag teaming on this particular topic. First of all, obviously, this has been a very critical week in our district, as Cassie brought to our attention, as well as our students. What we're going to share tonight is high stakes, definitely high emotions, and of high significance. The safety and security of our students and staff is of the utmost importance in our district. It may be frustrating to some of you that we cannot go into details tonight that you'd like us to go into because this is an active investigation. However, we will attempt to address the concerns that I know many of you have, those of you who have shown up in person and those of you who are joining us online. While this is not a forum for questions and answers, we will offer the opportunity for public comment during tonight's meeting, as well as a link to share your thoughts in writing. We put together this presentation to share information and to help correct misinformation that we've been hearing about last Thursday's incident at Central Kitsap High School. In working with law enforcement, we are still learning about new details and about the timeline. So some of what you hear tonight may be different from what you heard last week. We are still getting details even as late as early evening before this meeting. Next slide.
So thank you. As Dr. Prince explained, this is still an active investigation, and there's still a lot we can't share, but it's important that we share an overview of the timeline because we've been hearing some misinformation, misperceptions out there, and we want to try to help correct those because we hope to help to better understand the incident and our response. The situation evolved dramatically and over time, and we learned most of the facts after the suspect was already in custody of law enforcement. So up here you have an overview of the timeline. The car reported first in the fire lane in the morning, but the investigation itself took time. Our SRO called for backup, waited for authorization to perform a search of the car, and began an investigation. I want to be clear that the suspect was placed into custody and the weapon was discovered. Then he was transported to juvenile detention. The school did not implement a lockdown because the suspect was in custody and the vehicle and the weapon were secured and no active threat. Schools go into lockdown to protect students and staff from potential threats. In this case, the threat had been addressed. We've heard some questions around how the suspect was able to access the school. We do keep our exterior doors locked during school hours. The 17-year-old former student presented as a current student. We will be making some improvements to our procedures to prevent this from possibly happening again, and we'll share more about that later in this presentation. This incident started something closer to a traffic stop and turned into something radically different. At the beginning, it did not appear to be a situation that would affect our students or that would need to be communicated with families. As we explained, we did not discover the gravity of the situation until after the suspect had been detained by law enforcement. Communication on site went well, including law enforcement's response and investigation. Sorry. We continue to recognize that our communication out to staff and families was not timely, and that some families learned about the incident from Kitsap County Sheriff's Office Facebook post. We understand how troubling this would be for our families. We typically coordinate and release that information with law enforcement. This did not happen on Thursday. Dr. Prince has been in direct response with the sheriff and will commit to improving response and coordination.
Thanks, Mr. Block. So now what? I think that's the most important piece of this. I know that's why many of you are here. So first and foremost, we will be conducting and are already conducting an independent review of this incident. In the meantime, we will continue our layered approach to school safety and security with some changes. So first of all, We will continue our security walks at all schools. And we brought this to the board earlier, so you are aware that there is a team, including our sheriff's department and representatives, that walk our campuses and provide us with input and strengths and areas of improvements. So we will continue those. We have committed to timely communication. As Mr. Block shared, I was on a late night communication call with our sheriff, and the two of us are in commitment that we will meet regularly and we will have coordinated efforts with our communications so that this does not happen again. We will increase and have increased supervision at school entrances at every school. We will ensure and expect all staff and all visitors to wear their identification badges. We are exploring identification badges for all secondary students. We will continue, as we value greatly our SRO partnership. And we will encourage our students to continue to report anything unusual. See something, say something. That's critical for all of our safety. As I explained earlier, we do have time set aside for public comments during this meeting. There will be an opportunity for students and families and community members to address the board with their comments. The board won't answer questions during public comments portion of the agenda, and if you prefer to share your thoughts in writing, or if you have additional comments to share, please use this link. And we also printed up some takeaway cards that are printed with this link on the back table where the public comment cards are. Board members, do you have any questions?
Yeah.
Dr.
Prince, if you go back to either the last slide or the slide, I'd like to ask about the continued security walks. What's that about? What's involved in that?
So Dr. Prince was talking about the security walks, and we do several different walks. We do a health and safety walk, we do a security walk, and what those are is we're partnering with Kitsap County Sheriffs, we use our SROs, and we also use a third party. We use our insurance company, and all those layers are we're looking for issues that we need to address. On the health and safety side, that might be slip, trip, falls, what things do we need to improve. It could be maintenance issues that our maintenance department is completing a work order. On the security side, is we're looking for areas that we need to improve and what opportunities do we have to improve those.
How often do you do it? Once a day, twice a day?
Good question. So maybe a different question is we have security personnel at our sites plus SROs. They're continually walking those sites, but these walks are conducted on an annual basis. And then once we're done, we just keep doing it. So we're continually walking buildings.
That's big. That's a vague response, I think.
So currently this week I've done 2 safety walks at secondary schools.
And I want to make sure that the board knows Joe presented to us the security maybe about 2-3 board meetings ago. We laid out the procedures that they've done in security and how we use our security and how things are in our schools. So it was presented to us even before some of this actually that was there in making sure that we understand what our SROs do, but also what our security threats are and also what our updates are that is needed. The same.
So I'd like.
Go ahead, Director Green.
So I'll be honest with you, my concerns are more about what happened inside the school as opposed to what happened outside the school. There's no reason to believe that the sheriff's department didn't do what their procedures were, the call for backup and all that kind of stuff. my concerns are about what we've heard, not necessarily from you, but from others, or from other sources, around what happened inside the school when this was going down. My belief is that if you look out the window and you see 5 or 6 or so, potentially more security officers out there, taking someone into custody and stuff like that, that they're inside the building, that you're probably putting out the word that something's going on, and you continue to teach in place or do whatever the procedure you call, okay, but that you err on the side of caution. And I'm not sure, I mean, we've heard via email, I think it went to the entire board, that a particular student went to the counselor, didn't necessarily get the support they thought they would get from the counselor, and the intent went to the front office, spoke to someone at the front office who said, okay, you're gonna wait for your mom to come pick you up, go out front and wait for your mom, which is, so the student went out basically out front to wait for her mom where all of this activity was happening. I've heard today that student, based on this and the trauma, that the student may not be a student in Central Kitsap anymore. So I think what happens, the decisions that are made in the buildings, even in an event where it's not an active shooter, because we all know the active shooter is the absolute worst scenario, and the timing of the event that happened in St. Louis 2 days later or a day later was really unfortunate for them, obviously, for everyone else. So my concern is how we react and the training and the muscle memory that exists or doesn't exist with respect to response to anything, no matter how big or how small that we have.
Are we talking in security terms, or are we talking in every other terms?
I'm talking, yeah. A staff person, the staff person apparently told a student, okay, who's going home because they were upset about what happened. I think that this student had in some way was involved with reporting that the gun was on campus. Not quite sure exactly how that goes, but went to the counselor, and then the counselor sent them ultimately said they wanted to go home, went to the front office, and the front office did as they would always do. Said, okay, took the information and said, go ahead and wait out front. And it would appear that they were not aware of what was going on out front. I don't think any parent, and I'm one, and Drake, you're one, Megan, you're one, Denise, you're one, Rob, you were one. I don't think any of us.
I still am.
So
I don't think anybody, the point being, okay, is all of these walks are fine, okay, but I think whatever our training plan is and what our plan moving forward is, that it needs to be designed to build muscle memory around people who are responsible for responding to and making decisions and getting the word out with respect to events like this.
So just so Joe, just to make sure that that's that being investigated under.
That's part of what Dr. Prince was talking about the independent investigation after action review.
Okay, because I want to make sure, Eric, that we're dealing with Joe with the security on it. So is that something that's going to be brought to the board?
Yeah, so any of the information that you're sharing, Eric, or we're hearing about is part of the investigation that we are going to have an independent review on. And also, to Director Green's point, inside the school is of absolute utmost importance to us. And so as we debrief and look at the independent review, it's about how do we look at this incident differently and any other incident differently within the school as it pertains to students and reducing any trauma, reducing any of those impacts. Also, we are, and I can share this, leaning into meeting with students and or parents of this particular incident that were directly involved that we've been reaching out to. So yes, Eric, you're absolutely right. This goes beyond just the incident itself and the checkoff box of the timeline. There's a lot of layers of this because we are human and we have students involved and staff involved and families involved. So the independent review will help us know, what can we do better and how do we grow.
So,
I'd like to follow up on my question. Joe, in all due respect, your response to my question about the commit to continued security walks at the school. Again, in all due respect, kind of your answer is clear as mud.
Director McDermott.
Yes.
Let me. There's two things with this. One, like I said, we were briefed as a board on our security procedures before. This is something that has already been done to us. If that was going to be an issue, that's brought up then. We've had that issue already.
Well,
They
we're
got brought to
having
us.
it again then because I have no idea what that, when you say we're gonna continue security walks, I have no idea. Now, maybe I missed that meeting.
Yeah, no, I think definitely because that was expressed.
Yeah, okay.
And I want to make sure that we're not. I don't want to throw what he has done in security and what has been set up.
I
think the public knows that's that part. So if you ask that question and he's asked your question and answered it, maybe vague to you is as good as it is, but the question was answered to his best ability. That is, now if there's an improvement that needs to happen, then that's something that we will have in executive session and go over those new procedures.
Actually,
So I can, Director McDermott, let me help Eric just a second. Let me help with that. So the safety walks are happening all the time. We have safety committees at each site, and they're continually looking at how to make their spaces safe. The security walks are annual. We do those security walks with the sheriff's department and other outside third parties, and those are annual at every site, and we're conducting them now, which is on time annually. It just happens to be, right, that we're conducting them as part of the year. So I think CK high school, middle school was last week, high school was today. And so those are annual, those are already in place. It's not just out of response. Now on top of that layer, and that's why we say layered response, we will be conducting an independent review, which of course, Rob, I think will take another extra examination of our procedures and the security walks. So I think that layer is on top of each other. But what Mr. Block was sharing is that these are annual security walks. They're already in place, and we're going to continue those. Does that help?
It does.
Okay.
What you have there would seem to imply you're doing these every school day, and you're not.
No,
No, I'm sorry, Rob, those are annual, and what I was trying to relate to is there's layers of other portions of safety.
I understand, I just wanted some clarification on that.
All right, good enough.
All right.
So,
Thank you,
Director Green has something.
Director Green, go.
so I'm going to draw on my experience, and actually the reason that I'm not at that meeting is one of those other meetings, is a meeting similar. It is something similar to why we practice and develop muscle memory. If we were to look at the documented training that was provided to leadership and across the board with respect to preparing for these kind of things, I'd be curious as to what we're going to find. I'm not asking for an answer now. I would ask that whoever's doing that independent review take a look at the training that's been conducted. Making sure that it was not only was the training adequate, but the participation or attendance at that training was in fact documented and everything else. My concern is what level of confidence the community has in our ability to keep all of our kids safe. We have 20 buildings or more. We have staff working. We have staff working in these buildings. That we have a responsibility to make sure that they're safe. We know just by watching the news periodically, and I forget what happened last week. Just we know that things are happening everywhere, and that we have the potential. That the potential exists, you know, for this to happen, and this during in our face. So this is something. This is goal 2 on our previous strategic plan. In my mind, it should probably, you know, while academic achievement moving forward is obviously very important and everything like that, we've heard safety has taken a new position as probably goal 1B. And I think that we have a responsibility as a board to ensure, okay, that not only is our staff well trained, but that they understand that the expectation for the community and the board as an extension of the community is that they need to be vigilant, because all it takes is for one person to not do what they're supposed to do, or, you know, to not say something when they see something, and bad things can happen. And what we need to do is drive home the fact that, okay, this responsibility lies with everyone, not just with staff, not just with students. Okay, it falls with everyone. You know, I commend the students at CK. I'm not a big fan of the protests of going outside of classrooms. I'll be honest with you. I don't think I've said that before. But I commend what they did. I had someone text me a picture of a couple of students holding a sign today that said, "How come the Kitsap Fund told me about what happened before my school did?" And that you know, there are a lot of layers, like you said, Dr. Prince, about what's going on. And, okay, and this it's about procedures. It's about physical security. It's about everything. But I think this is going to be a long discussion, both in an open session and in executive session, as to how we want to move forward and how we want to proceed.
Let me remind this board, when Joe was in front of us some time ago, we did ask for an update on our training procedures. We asked for it. And that's what, it's unfortunate that this incident happened that spurred it in, but that is on the agenda to get in the session, that what is our new update? We asked for it, and he said that he will apply that. Now, I guess it's ASP on it now, but. Is there any other questions, comments?
So the day after, at CK, because I attend CK, there was a lockdown because of another threat. And I'm just gonna say, like, as a student body, I'm being completely honest, I don't think all of the staff took it seriously. I don't think all the students took it seriously. And I think part of the reason why is that we were informed that it was just another lockdown. We didn't know that there was an actual threat. So is there any reason why, like, you wouldn't want to actually tell, like, the students, like, what was going on? Because I think that would have changed the way we would have carried ourselves throughout the day, or, like, handled things. Because that same day we had pet assembly, and it was the end of Spirit Week, and then the next day was homecoming. So it was just all of these things, like, accumulating together, and like emotions were heightened, and like that kind of thing. I just don't quite understand why that, like, since there was already issues with communication the day before, why there wasn't clarity on that end of the spectrum the next day.
Yeah, and that's a great question. I think every time we get into these conversations, it's going to always be, how do we improve communication? So I think talking back with the building team of how do we provide that, even if it's after the fact, of do we debrief with the group, who's in that group, how do they get that information? Because there's different layers of that communication, right? There's, like, as the situation evolves, you're trying to update, and then you're trying to provide facts, and then you're trying to provide resolution. So I think that's a good suggestion of how do we improve that communication? How do we do it in the moment? How do we do it during and after? And what's that after look like? Like Dr. Prince was talking about, I think we can also always get better at how do we understand the trauma? How do we then support? And how do we help people move forward? Those are all things that, and I do believe in the after action of what things do we need to improve? And I think you're right, it's how do we get that information out? Is it factual? Do we know? And then how do we make sure that, you know, we provide for that trauma piece of, okay, we just told you, now we don't want to just send you home and go, we hope you're okay.
As a follow-up to Cassie's question, when I was in the Navy, probably a lot of people in this audience know the process. If you're conducting a drill, it'll be announced over the one MC on the ship, this is a drill, this is a drill, okay? And if you're dealing with a real event, like they call general quarters, they'll say general quarters, this is not a drill. It seems to me that using that sort of, this is not a drill, this is a drill, might provide the immediate clarity that is warranted in the situation. I just throw that out.
Yeah, and that's good feedback, Rob. Actually, on the day of the incident, we were conducting district-wide and did a radio communication, started with this is a drill, and then we give a timeline of when is the drill expected to conclude, and then we finish the drill with, the drill has now been concluded. So always good to let people know and use plain speak about what's going on.
And if you find yourself in a situation where you're in the midst of a drill that turns into a real event, then at that point you say, this is no longer a drill, this is no longer a drill, lockdown, or whatever the hell the message is going to be.
So I was actually at CK High School on Friday morning, and so I mean I don't remember the what Mr. Johnson said word for word over the intercom. I didn't hear anything that made it sound at all like it wasn't a real modified lockdown. It was a modified lockdown, and I know that I was in the room as there were multiple people figuring out exactly what he needed to say over the intercom, and also what went out to families as soon as possible. And so it was, we were not perfect, but there was a lot of concern and I can't find the right word. That like everyone knew that it was important to get that communication out, to try to make it as clear as possible, as correct as possible, and as quick as possible. And that is difficult to do. And you know, like we were ready to go. It was ready to go, and then someone's like, oh, do we need to add this? And so in the moment, like there's always room for improvement. I can tell you, like, it wasn't because no one cared or no one was joking. It wasn't because anyone was joking around. It was trying to make it as clear, concise, and correct, and as quick as possible.
Thank you. All right. Dr. Green?
So as we look at how this thing played out, okay, we all know when something happens that the kids have their phones and they're getting the word out. It's leaving the building or the district or wherever going home and stuff. I mean, when we look at these procedures, we need to be clear for the staff exactly what those things are, published procedures, and understand the concept of vulnerabilities. That was a subject that we talked about today at this meeting that I'm at. And I get that piece of it. Okay, but our staff needs to know, especially those in the front office, because they're often the ones that see whatever's going on first. Okay, that they need to know who to call right away, and that comes with drills, whether it's with students in the building or not. Okay, our plan and our training plan moving forward needs to ensure that what we do, ensures that the safety of the staff and the students comes first. We need to ensure that we get ahead of Facebook and ahead of Twitter. Okay, that we get and that's as simple as we have a situation at such and such a school, and I'd like to make a point I've been thinking about. this is not just a secondary school problem or secondary school issue. This is every building, whether it's an administrative building, whether it's the operations building, it doesn't matter. And wherever we PKSD folks, okay, I mean, this needs to be of the utmost importance. And the board needs to take this and ensure, okay, that we set high expectations and that we get answers and information that we need to have to be able to ask the right questions moving ahead. So, you know, there's nothing, the confidence of the community, the confidence of the staff and the students right now, I mean, I think that should be our biggest concern. I think that needs to be very aggressive in how we move forward, and we need to be open and transparent as we do it.
Thank you, Director Green. All right, thank you, Joe. Wow, sorry. Ms. Bailey, we got next is enrollment report for October, Ms. Bailey.
Good evening, board members. You have in your materials the enrollment report as of October 3rd. In the month of October, we did see a slight increase in our K-12 enrollment of about 13 students. We also added and started counting and reporting the running start. So what you're seeing there does include running start, which was not included last month because it wasn't part of our count day. This puts us in a slightly better enrollment projection than what Dr. Prince described to you last month based upon the one data point, although it's not significantly better. You know, based upon where we are in October and knowing how our enrollment will, the attrition that we have in our enrollment year upon year, I do expect that we will be in the range of about 130 down from budget once we average everything out, barring any significant shifts or changes in how our enrollment typically attrits. So, do you have any questions about the enrollment report? Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have student learning. We have an update on Barker Creek. Let's step it back up and Kristen.
Mr. Chrisman. Yes, good evening. Tonight is my pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Stuart Chrisman, the principal of Barker Creek Community School. Tonight, Mr. Chrisman will be sharing information from last year's data in regards to our ALE programs.
Good evening, board members and superintendent. So our ALE program update is partly a state requirement and hopefully partly education. So state law says that we need to report to you guys every year on last year's enrollment, about our certificated staffing, and share that information. But we're trying to share a little bit of other stuff to educate.
Help. The clicker. Put it on the table.
That happened to me.
Yeah, put it on the table because I think Joe was touching.
Okay,
Yeah,
awesome.
it is.
There we go.
Yeah, I noticed Joe was touching it on the table. I'm like, okay, it works down here then.
So Barker Creek Community School, just kind of a broad overview. We have 30 plus staff at our school, adults that care about our students, ranging from our teachers to our office staff, security counselors, para-educators. We last year served about 750 students. We may have actually seen a few more, but that's kind of our best guess about how many kids we saw. And at Barker Creek, we keep focusing that first, we're a choice school. No student is forced to attend our school. Somewhere along the way, a student chose that Barker Creek was going to be a better option than the other school. Comprehensive, we have all the classes that we need to have so a student can graduate with a high school diploma. And then community, we keep stressing that we're small, we want to know every student in our building, and we want to have more of that family community feel. Big schools do a lot of things great, but sometimes that little bit of community is not always there. Apologize for a typo on this slide, and I'll get there in a minute. So Barker Creek, we serve students in grades K through 12. We have all grades represented. We have students in our classroom-based program. That's our 9th through 12th grade students who want a school experience where they come in the building, have teachers, attend a schedule of classes. So that's our 9-12 classroom-based program. We used to have a 9-12 online program, but now, and this is our typo, it's a K-12 program. We have kindergartners through 12th graders in our online program. And then we have a parent partnership program which serves students K through 8. We refer to our online program and our parent partnership program as our remote programs because students are doing the majority of their work outside of the walls of our school. Kind of a difference between online and parent partnership is how the curriculum and instruction is being delivered. Our parent partnership program was designed for families who wanted an experience similar to homeschooling. We had families that wanted to be doing the teaching of their children. They did, however, want access to our school district's curriculum. They wanted some guidance from certificated staff about pacing, wanted some help along the way with instruction. So that's our parent partnership program. Parents delivering instruction, we're providing curriculum. Our online program, the role of the parent is more of a coach, making sure that their kids are getting online, doing the work that they need to, but the core of the instruction is being provided through Pearson Online, so our online program provides that. So we're getting to the little piece that the state law requires. Our student headcount average last year was 727 students. That's basically, we looked at the count for every month and divided by 9 months. That's how we get that. Our FTE average, so that's if a head count, every kid that walks in our building counts as 1. FTE is a proportion because not all of our students are full-time students with us. So that number is always going to be smaller than the head count average. Our head count was 694.7 last year. Some of the reason kids aren't full-time, every student who participates in West Sound Tech, we split that 1.0 with them. So we're about 0.6 for each of those kids. West Sound Tech is 0.4. We also have students who do running start, and the amount of school they do in our building ranges from 0.8 or 80% of their day to some of those students we never see at all, and we get to claim 0% of the day. So the rest of the FTE that we don't get to count in our building goes to OC to help support the students. Our ratio of certificated instructional staff, our teachers who are doing the teaching, to our students is 34.6 to 1. And that's where we've been trending kind of over time. And then the number of certificated instructional staff last year, our teachers, this number doesn't include our counselors, is 20.8. Now, I know that Dr. Eric Green asked for kind of where are we right now. So I want to give you 2 numbers to kind of put the 727 into perspective. So this year, right now we're about 558 students when I look on Tower School. That's our current head count. So we are down from the 727 that we saw last year, which isn't surprising. We saw a lot of our online students, especially our young students, return to neighborhood schools. And I think a small celebration is a couple weeks ago, I pulled up class lists from last year because I wanted to know what happened to our online kids, especially our young ones, our elementary school kids. they're all back in a neighborhood school. I mean, about 95% of them are back in a neighborhood school, whether it's in our district, whether they moved out of state. We had one family choose to go into homeschool, so they're truly homeschooling. There were 2 or 3 families that we can't account for, but that's really a celebration. And the elementary place is where we saw the biggest loss. The other number I wanted to share with you is October 2019. So that was before we went into pandemic, and I think that's a better comparison number. Our enrollment at that point was 393. So we've had a bubble, a bump because of COVID getting us up. A little higher last year, 727. I mean, the year before, 727 last year. And this year, like I said, we're at 558, but that's an increase over where we were in 2019. Wanted to share a couple celebrations from last year, not required by the state, but I'd like to share them in here. Graduation and being able to return to an in-person graduation. That was a great celebration, and being able to pack the house. We had to have tickets, but we packed the house and we had a fun graduation. Last year, we saw the return of our in-person programs. We were excited that we got to have students back in our building. It was interesting as we started the year with masking and social distancing, and then as things got safer, those things fell away. And this is not a data point I have, but second semester, the kind of giddiness and fun of school returned. That was exciting to see. Student and family engagement, we were able to start enrichment with our parent partnership program again. We were able to start some after-school activities. Parent partnership was able to do some of their parent university, bringing families in and teaching them those skills. So those are some of our celebrations. Graduation, we had 138 kids that we graduated last year. I think we had 110-ish at the graduation ceremony. That's just a lot of fun. So wanted to share a couple pictures to remember that piece. Spider-Man was there. That was a fun one. As we look to this year and some of the things that we've talked about as staff, one is to continue rebuilding our community, making it so that kids are continuing to feel comfortable in our space. This year, one of the changes is our online staff has joined us. They're in the building every day, and they're becoming part of that culture and community that we have as adults. The K-12 online connections, even though those kids are working outside of our school walls, we're trying to find ways to bring them into our community. All of our online teachers are having weekly class meetings through Zoom. We're starting up some classes. Our K-8 teachers are doing some art classes to get kids who want to actually inside of our building. Our teachers are starting to do those monthly conferences where students have a choice of either Zoom, phone call, or in person, and we're starting to get a lot of those kids coming in at least once a month. We're continuing to focus on 9th graders. We devote a little bit extra of our staffing because we believe if we can get our 9th graders started right, they're less likely to fall behind. We're hoping to start seeing kids after school, hope that our clubs start getting going again. And then this year's been kind of some conversation, talk, a little bit of reading. Kids are coming back to us with a lot of anxiety, whether it's about being in school again, the safety stuff, still concerned about health and stuff, and just making sure that we can be as informed and as educated as possible. So that's the ALE report. So I guess it's time for questions if there are some.
Okay.
I just, I want to say I was excited to see student clubs on there. I know there were a couple of, we did the student voice visits last year, and that was a topic that came up. There wasn't a lot that the students said could be improved at Barker Creek, and that was just one thing. So I was excited to see that. And I just thank you, and some of the strategic planning forum, today, the relationships, I could just call them both of them I went to, the relationships from Barker Creek Parent Partnership and just Barker Creek Community School, like the staff is just like the community loves the staff and is so grateful for the staff and their relationships that they have with their students. And so I just wanted to like pass that on as like thank you, and to keep it going.
Thank you for sharing that.
Anybody else?
So,
Okay,
Stuart, my question is really, well, twofold. I'll ask first, are all the Running Start students identified as Barker Creek or aligned with Barker Creek for reporting purposes, or are there just certain numbers that?
So students who are part of Barker Creek are identified as Barker Creek Running Start students, but the students who are part of CK High School are recognized as CK High School Running Start students.
Okay, so the number, I was just curious when you talk about, all right, about that. The other piece of it has to do with the K-12 or K-12 online piece. Is the CK Virtual Academy, or are we still talking in terms of the CK Virtual Academy, or are we just rolling all of that into the K-12 online connection?
So we have a virtual academy that serves students K through 12th grade. The enrollment numbers I shared with you are for students that are part of all three of our programs. So pre-pandemic, we just had online. Virtual academy was just 9, 12, 60 or 70 kids in our building. Now we have a K-12 program, and now it's part of Barker Creek.
So, Stuart, is K-12 online connections the same as the virtual academy?
Oh, I'm sorry. What we were trying to get there is we're trying to make, for our K-12 online students, we're trying to make connections with them, bringing them into the building, bringing them into group activities, etc. I'm sorry if that was confusing.
I think moving forward, as we talk about, when we get to talking about the strategic plan and everything else, I think the CK Virtual Academy is going to be, we just need some clarity on that, because I think the CK Virtual Academy is one of those things that I think moving for the future is something that we can offer. I'm hoping, just personally me, and not speaking for anyone else or the board, that we can find instructors who are really interested in getting certified to teach online, and to basically take over what Pearson's doing for us, where we are taking care of our own students, or that we are doing the online piece with our own students, and that they're getting the experience with our teachers, with our instructors, and the opportunities that they might get more related to a school, to the CK school district, as opposed to just a generic Pearson product. So I know that you have instructors that are working with those online students. Everything else, it'd be really cool to see that our program was our own program, built and designed for our own students and for our community. So that's why I was asking that question. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. So I'll say this as a parent that used the service last year, parent partnership with my son. It was, just having that ability with the teacher, those conversations weekly that we had with her, and just really giving us as parents, just guidance. But it was those Fridays going down there that he was excited, like, every Friday went down there, left in the morning, walked, and it was happy, to be in the building and be with other students that were online as well. So I think it was a good experience for us, and we were one of the students, one of the parents that did, or families that did go back. He went back to his school, and a lot of it was his decision. What do you feel comfortable about doing this year? And he said it with the help of the teacher online. It's like, hey, it's okay if he wants to do that, and he's happy back there. So I thank you guys for. It was a good send off on it, but the transition was just easy. It wasn't something that was difficult of going somewhere else. So it was good.
I'll share that with his teacher.
Yes, thank you. All right, thank you so much. All right, now we are the general. And Director Green, I know you're traveling, but anything to share on the legislative report?
No, I'm afraid I don't. I haven't seen the priorities list come out. I haven't seen anything like that. So, but we did get our submission in on time, and on appearance it looked like a little snafu. But I talked to Logan, and Logan indicated that what he saw and what was sent to me is what we submitted was different. So,
okay.
I think from that perspective, I'm waiting for it. So.
And I was in Olympia for my last legislative session, and just gearing up for session, and hopefully our partner here will be voted and so we sit on ledge, but they're really gearing up for a lot of what's getting ready to happen in legislative session. Some good fights that I think need to happen from here in the community, hearing from parents that I think our legislators need to hear and prioritize. And I think it was good meeting to know that there's a lot of work that's getting ready to get done on behalf of our students and families in Washington State. So, anything you want to add?
Oh, I just noticed, I got an email today, so WASDA's, their state networking call every other Thursday, and tomorrow's, it looks like the topic is the 2023 ledge priorities, so they should be posting those soon then, so we can share those out at hopefully the next meeting.
All right, thank you.
I'll be on an airplane tomorrow.
I know you won't be watching it, but I'm hoping if they talk about it, then they get it on their website too, so.
All right, to move us along, we are being asked to approve the second reading of revisions to policy 1105, Director District Boundaries. Superintendent Prince.
Yes, at our last meeting, we took a look at the policy 1105 and discussed the district boundary, and there is a small change in the policy as far as the addresses. Is that correct, Tina?
Yes, it's so posted in the board docs, you'll see highlighted in yellow.
Right, so that was brought to our attention at the last meeting that part of it, the addresses were not highlighted. They have since been highlighted, so it's coming back in its adjusted format for the board for the second read and adoption.
All right, do we have any questions or comments from the board? All right, do we have a motion to approve the second reading of the revised policy 1105, Director District Boundaries as presented?
Move approval of the second reading of revisions to policy 1105, Director District Boundaries as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All right, with unanimous decision, the reading of revised to policy 1105, Director Boundaries, will stand as approved as presented. All right, we are now being asked to approve resolution number 07-2223 for the redistricting director's adjust to 2010 U.S. Census data. Superintendent Prince.
Yes, and just for our public that are viewing, remember from last week, this has nothing to do with school boundaries, so I just don't want there to be any misinformation. It's not school boundaries. It has to do with our school board director boundaries, and as they stand, all of the currently seated directors sit within. It's just every 10 years of the census we have to read boundaries. So, okay, so with that also we are required to have a resolution, and that resolution is before you. And so we're asking you to approve resolution number 07-2223 for redistricting director districts to adjust to the 2010 U.S. Census data. So, there you go.
Thank you, Adina, because it did. I was like, what in the world? All right, any comments or questions from the board? All right. All right, do we have a motion to approve resolution number 07-2223 for the redistricting director's district to adjust to 2010 U.S. Census data?
Move approval of resolution number 07-2223 redistricting director districts to adjust to 2010 U.S. Census data as presented.
We have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please by saying Please vote signify by saying aye.
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 I said aye.
Oh, okay. Resolution with a unanimous vote, resolution number 072223 for the redistricting director districts to adjust the 2010 U.S. Census data is approved as presented. All right, this is the first one. We are being asked to approve the first reading of revisions to policy 3205, sexual harassment of students prohibited. Ms. Beckman.